whole point is, and everybody's just like so mesmerized that they so proud. So in the show, what an impact. I think that all yeah. But to me, that is like the Holy Spirit has such an impact
Now you home.
He's not going to wear it anyway. He's not even wearing the DVDs.
How do you know? How do you know? Huh?
I stand accused. That's good. Those are character fast.
Get all my underwear at Costco.
By the way, this is all we're on. So everybody knows everything.
So you brought up the DVDs.
I brought up. Let's see. The Blessed Virgin. Well, okay. Virtuous. Doctrine. Blessed Virtuous Doctrine. We all have our DVDs.
The
You
victorious
just brought up
boy.
a word picture for me. I was in the dermatologist sitting in the chair with DVDs. And then they give you a covering. The girl comes in, his assistant.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
In the name of medicine.
The name of medicine. And I was there in the name of Jesus.
Amen.
And you were not modest at all.
I didn't care less, but I looked like I had it's good though. They found a basal cell, 3/4 inch basal cell right here.
So what's a basal? Basal is a
That's cancer. It's a cancer.
Oh, okay.
It's not the dangerous one.
Okay.
But they get it because it can go deep.
Okay.
It's a serious damage.
You ever see people that have face pieces they put on because half of their face is missing? That's a basal. And they
It's not a spice.
no,
It's rice.
I eat.
Was that on your chicken?
No.
maybe that's
Oh,
what
right.
the basil.
You know, I think they have that somewhere. Philippians chapter 2. Philippians chapter 2, verse 10. But I trust in the Lord Jesus to send Timotheus shortly unto you, that I also may have good comfort when I know of your state. When I know of your state. What state are we in? So I think we can talk a little bit about the kind of thing that all of us, deal with on a daily basis, and it's something that it's a good thing to know that my state is not affecting my standing, but my standing will affect my state. So when we're talking to people, it's right for us to think that they are in a certain state. And this could be a very good provoking question. What state are you in? So, well, I'm in Maryland. What state are you in? Yeah, state of mind, And disorientation can become a point of transformation. Okay. This is what also Paul was saying in Philippians 4:11. Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned. That's a good word in Greek. It kind of speaks of I've been initiated, meaning that this is not theoretical in his mind. He's actually walking this walk. And he's actually experienced this experience, and that is that whatsoever state I am in, I am what? Content. Yeah. Whatsoever state, not whatsoever standing. See, this is the key, I think, that we can help so many, because even if they do, and we do reference our state, our present condition, like I'm a little tired today, I'm sore, I'm upset because of situations that I'm dealing with, whatever state I am in, how do I get to that place of contentment that Paul is talking about? So let's talk about it. How do I get to where, and is the contentment, is that kind of like a resignation of, it's, everything is everything. We have these sayings, it is what it is. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. And this is where faith can embrace something that is presently not. Okay? And, not calling those things that are not as though they what? They are. They are. So, I'm hearing that, and and we buck up, we, humanity, human beings, we buck up against divine truth with our human experience. Because what people say, they say, I know what you're talking about, Pastor, but I gotta live in the real world. This is what they say. I'm living in the real world, like I gotta go home at night and be with this woman. You're asking me to be content? I know I would go home and you love your lives.
Well, that's a good example.
Yeah.
But it really boils down to the details of life being
speak up. There's no one all around.
That's a good example. There's many good examples of that, because what it boils down to is, am I consumed or occupied with the details of life, or am I occupied with being in communion with God in Christ? And I think that's and how it happens is, I think it's, and hearing the word is so significant, because hearing the word, not just hearing the word, but hearing the word where we're in a place where we can see the character and nature of God. God is good, because God, when you hear His word, He draws you to Himself through His word. He doesn't drive you, but He draws you to Himself so that you can come out of your self-conscious stupor that you were in, and now become consumed or conscious, become God conscious again. And truth be told, we flip-flop back and forth between that, because we still have our flesh, which is not eradicated. We also have our human spirit, which we can live in. And I think that's where it is. Obviously, that's what God wants us to live. As it says in Galatians 5, where He says, be filled with the Spirit, and you won't fulfill the lust of the flesh. And it talks about all the, the nature of the flesh and what they are and so forth. But I love that. I love in Romans 8 where it says, as many as are led by the Spirit, they are the sons, they are the living sons of God. That's what it's all about.
How about the believer who, and you're speaking Christian work, which is perfect, but think of the person who, so they know that, or maybe they don't know that, they're a Christian. And like you were saying, they're bogged down in the details of life. Mortgage, I'm behind a month on my mortgage. I've been furloughed from my job. do I have gas in the car? And on it goes.
So easy to do.
That's that side of life. And you brought out so beautifully. So the person, how do I escape that mindset and begin to think like what you're talking about? Not just you, but all of us.
Keep drawing near. Make good decisions to draw near.
To
eventually, because we're all like that. When you came to this, we were like all like that. As we kept hearing it and drawing near, it began to free us. The truth of Christ began to free us from that. Cause us to. That's the I think you mentioned the word transformation by the renewing of the mind. And that's really how it happens. Don't be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind. And was mentioned earlier this morning, spirit taught, spirit led, and just draw near. Because God is faithful. He's the one that's faithful to minister life to us, so we can come out of that life of sight, I guess we call it. Because sight really is the enemy of the faith. I want to live in faith, but I'm not. I'm totally going by sight. I am completely going by sight, consumed with the details of life. Then I hear a word, I'm like,
okay.
It's like a switch.
You hear
it.
a word.
Hear a word. And it takes you out. In a second, you go from sight and consumed with everything that the world's consumed with. And all of a sudden, this it just goes away. It's dispelled when your eyes are on someone else or on something on him. Yeah. We have some people trying to bring us all the time, and that's the normal. That's normal.
It's funny that you said that. I got my, I got these Bible college students reading Watchman Nee, normal Christian life. And what was interesting is that I just asked. I said, "How many have read anything by Watchman Nee?" And it's like 20 some odd, 3 hands go up. I said, "Okay, here we go." And I think that along with the idea that I'm a Christian, I go to church, because somebody might say to us, Pastor Jeff, I read my Bible, I'm praying, but nothing's changing in my state. Nothing's changing in my state. But can God declare that He was going to change your state? You want to add something, Pastor?
Yeah, you quoted Philippians 4:11. Not that I speak from want, but I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances. The Greek word is maintaino, and it has 2 meanings. It means to learn by inquiry, like this a seeking after the truth, and the second is to learn by practice, by experience, and I believe so much of our Christian experience is about experience. It's about being brought through a process of learning through the details of life as God implements the truth at different aspects of the truth in the things that we face day to day, details. So I'm not just reading about God in the Scripture, but He's revealing Himself personally, and it's details where it's experience. Paul said in Philippians 3:10 that I may know Him. That word know, ginosko, has the idea of experiential knowledge. I'm never going to really know God until I'm all in, until I'm putting myself in the middle of the process. It's kind of like John Bunyan Pilgrim's Progress. It's I'm traveling from one place to another, and in every place I'm traveling, I'm seeing a different aspect of who God is. And he's implementing some kind of a lesson in the midst of the details, and the more that I'm aware of the process, aware of the journey, the more that I am being brought into a deeper understanding of who he is and what he's trying to do in my life and also through my life. Because I have, as I go through this experience, I now have a ministry to the world that he gives me in the midst of it. So
That's right on. That's what we call it reflected glory. There's this relationship with God we have. Really hearing the word, getting into our routine, however you personal relationship with God.
I can't hear you, Pastor.
So he really
Speak into the mic.
God is inside.
The Lord is inside.
Then he wants to come out.
He wants to come out.
He wants to come out. That's reflected. So there's a reflection of reflected glory through you, through a person. Example: Moses killed an Egyptian. Moses murdered in sin. So God goes to work on his heart. God goes to work on Moses' heart for years. It took years. And then what was God's estimation of Moses later on? He was the meekest. A murderer was now the meekest man in all of Israel. Come on now. And that's what it is. It's like you were this way. God did work on you, chiseling him all through our lives. And then what's produced is the very character of Christ. Then there's a manifestation of a person. A manifestation of a person through a human.
So Michelangelo looks at a block of granite and he already sees the image in
That's a
there.
good one, yeah.
Yeah, and he just chisels away to release the image that he already saw.
Whatever doesn't look like the statue.
Yeah, it's out. It's gone.
I think, got to admit, Mike was good at what he did.
He did. Jesus is good with what he does. But we sometimes want to hold on to that chip, like
Chunk.
yeah, the chunk.
Wait a minute. Wait, I don't understand that. I think there's two words. Well, one is the perception. And I think perception, a standing perception of who we are, is the image that we know of ourselves. It can be very subtle, and it can be even subconscious. And that's who we govern. I can't do that. Whatever the negative talk is, subconsciously, there's this recording going on. And then at that point, there comes a need to God change my heart. I want to meditate, but you know what? My heart is full of lust, it's full of murder, it's full of adultery, it's theft, left and right. It's change my heart so that I can meditate on your word. If you don't change my heart, I'm trying to get new wine in this old wine squad. It's just not quite working. And so I understand a little doctrine that's straight out here. So I'm going to ask for you to fashion my heart so that I would fashion my heart that I would honor your word. That in my heart I would honor your word and have a place in my heart that I would obey your word, I would embrace your word, that it would become my perception, the ability to recognize that you're not who my flesh says you are, and I'm not who my flesh says I am. But if I can perceive that you're good, desirous, and you love me, then
that's going to change my attitude, my perception. If I'm perceiving that this is not good, this is going to,
Thank you.
it's not going to happen. But if God changes my heart, my perception changes, and that perception, or disorientation, makes me a candidate for transformation and growth. You said it. Disorientated state makes, and if I can recognize that I'm disoriented from the grace of God, my heart isn't established in grace at all. You know where it's at? It's in the fall. And I perceive things based on the knowledge of the fall. However, I need to amplify and magnify the things of God. But I can't do that unless I have a changed heart.
You know, you're touching on something because so my standing is what's going on in my heart. That the heart transformation that you're talking about is only what God can do. I can't do it. But what do I end up? If I don't go that way, I end up wanting to change my state. Make my condition a little easier.
In the energy of the flesh.
Regardless, I compromise
Self-help.
Yeah, self-help, and you can buy 100 books about do this, 7 steps to American success. And we buy into that because that's really the shortcut. If I can just do this in 7 steps, why do I need a relationship that will touch my heart? Perfect. And then the heart, I love what you said, the heart then is the very basis of my response to the standing that I am in Christ. Okay? So my state doesn't change. My circumstances don't change. And we know people who, what do we say? They've gone through some horrific states, okay? Think of Richard Wurmbrand, okay? And you say, how did that guy get through all of that? He had the hidden heart life with God. He knew his standing whenever, regardless of his present state. And so the reality of that is proven to be the road to my victory. Regardless, so Paul said, regardless of whatsoever state I am in, I have learned to be content. And it's not a surrender to the circumstances.
And it's a continual process. It's a continual process so that because we have to have a provision for failure. So, yeah, I get it, what you do. I get it, what you do. It's continually, habitually filled with the Holy Spirit. But when you fail, you have to adjust. You have to adjust to grace again. It's just basically adjusting to grace. So that, and God has given us that through His Spirit, in our human spirit. We just make an adjustment back to grace. So that our failure, we don't stay down. Get it. Keep getting up. Don't stop. No matter how many times it happens, just keep getting up. Keep getting up.
But see, Pastor, that's so good. I mean, but because we understand the platform in which grace gives us a standing. If I didn't know that, then my present state of sinning and failing, there's no basis there's not enough, I tend to want to do good works to offset my bad works. So I'm still in the condition of state.
You shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
Trying to do that.
Yeah.
There's another side to this too. There's another side to this too that
brought up the issue of being fashioned, that God is doing the fashioning, and it brought to mind Psalm 139 verses 13 and 14 says, "For you formed my inward parts, you wove me in my mother's womb." and I will give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. That idea being woven, another Hebrew, the Hebrew word actually means to be embroidered, and it has the idea that it is God doing His work, creating something. It is Him fashioning. It is Him using His hands to create something in me. So, in a sense, He's replicating in me what He wants to make me to be, instead of expecting me to get to that place where He wants me to be. It's like, no, I let Him do the work. It reminds me of Jeremiah 18, where we have the picture of the potter and the clay, and in verse 4, it says that He remakes me. He's working on my heart. He wants to make my heart the way He wants it to be. So He's the master. He's the Michelangelo.
That's why
He's the one that's doing the work in me, and that's the awesome privilege of us letting Him be God. And if that doesn't happen, then the work is not going to be a fulfillment of what He wants to accomplish.
I was thinking of the Psalm 33:15. He fashions their hearts individually. He considers all their works. He fashions their hearts individually, and also we're not the tail, but the head. And a head, in being a head, we can actually perceive that we have this awareness that we're not like Christ, but we want to be. And we can say, God, will you fashion my heart like Christ is in this area? I want to be giving. I don't want to be a taker. I want my heart to be molded and fashioned, but I can't do that. And so I'm going to wait. I will wait for you to do that work in me. But I perceive, my perception is, I'm aware of my fallen state. Your word has shown me that I am sinful through and through, and this leopard ain't going to change its skin, but you can. You can. So I'm going to ask you to fashion my heart like this. This is what I want you to do. And I know this is according to your will, and I know you will answer. You will answer this way. I want to be like Bill Alderson. You know why? Because
no, you don't.
He shows me Christ. I want to be like Pastor Bruce Wright. I don't want to be like myself.
Well, we're saying the same thing. So Paul says, be followers of me as I am following Christ. I mean, the idea is that in human viewpoint, we all kind of have our heroes. People like, I want to be like Mike. Okay.
I got something to say.
You mean Michelangelo?
Yes. But hold that thought, Pastor, just for a minute. This is why Paul said, Romans 12, I beseech you, brothers, by the mercies of God. Now, he doesn't say by the legalism or by the religion or by the self-effort or by self-righteousness, but by the mercies of God. I beseech you, present your bodies. Now, that's where we experience our state physically. Like I could be in a hospital bed. I could be on a beach in Waikiki. Present your bodies as a sacrifice alive from the dead. Okay. And then he says that stop being conformed to that state. Rather be transformed in the renewing of your mind, i.e. the new. That's where I process. That's where I identify with this notion that Christ knows me absolutely from the womb. Okay, He's fashioned me. He's interwoven into my. I'm interwoven, and I'm woven into His plan. And then from there, by faith, I begin to experience. But mercy is like, because that's where we're going with this series that we're talking, the last 4 weeks, the power of mercy. Like, how important. I don't want to just reduce my idea or my thought of mercy down to not getting what I deserve. That's a fair definition. But I think that the operation of mercy is more extensive, and it goes into like what we're talking about right now.
Well, mercy is really the ability to love people within a no response situation. So in other words, like if you work in a nursing home or something like that, or wherever it is, and somebody has no capacity at all. Mercy is really just unconditionally loving people where they're at. That's really what mercy is, and that's what God does to us, and then that's reflected. But going back to who I am, number one, we're not our flesh. Our flesh is just was attached to us when we were born. That's it. And it contaminated our whole entire soul. It contaminated our whole soul. But when you got born again, circumcision, that flesh was cut away from us, our soul, our being. But also the spirit was quickened and made alive. And that's what we're delivered not to be. Oh man, in the eyes of God, it's completely gone. And not eradicated, but torn.
Isaiah chapter 1, verse 19 says, this is the New American Standard, if you are willing and obey, then you will eat the best of the land. That willingness is the beginning part of the process.
The decision.
A willingness to let God be God. And out of that will flow obedience. A willingness to go to
Where is
walk
that?
with
Isaiah
Him.
what?
119.
119.
It comes right after 118, which says, "Come now, let us reason together. Though your sins be as scarlet, they will be as white as snow." So the idea here is that God is basically saying, I want a willing heart. A willing heart is the place where I can. That's the stone that I can use, that I can create my masterpiece in. That willing heart, and until it's willing, then he says in verse 20. But if you refuse and rebel, you'll be devoured by the sword.
Now, doesn't the hyper-Calvinism,
So it's
doesn't hyper-Calvinism say that you can't in your will, you don't have that kind of will? Your will is everything contaminated by the grave, so you don't even can't even decide.
You're talking about like the predestination,
I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's what I believe.
That's so stupid.
We have a battle here. No battle.
So I'm just listening to everybody what they're saying. The bottom line is, I can't fix myself.
Okay. Could you say that again, Pastor?
I cannot fix myself. As men, we all fix things, don't we?
Yeah.
You fix the airplane.
I tried.
He tells others how to fix.
He fixes people in the church.
I do?
Yeah. So
With a hammer.
you fix homes.
Pull down,
We
pull
all
down,
think,
build up.
we all know that we can fix things. So it's hard for us to realize that I can't fix myself. We try to hide in things
Wow.
that we can fix,
Yeah.
because that makes us feel okay. But God knows the heart. I don't know my own heart. I have no, like you said, someone said, we're imparted sin. Each one of us are imparted a sin nature that's unique and different from anybody else. And it only takes God. Only God can know what it is that needs to be done.
I mean, my sin nature is different than Norm's.
It's so
It's not better. Oh.
So what do I do? Paul said, what do I do? He went through this whole gymnastics. It's faithful as, well, first of all, he said that where can I go to get it fixed? It's Jesus.
Thank God.
So thank God that there's a provision that I don't understand because I have a sin nature. So I need something supernatural to deal with the supernatural in my life that I don't know why I think the way I think. Even though I can fix things and hide in those things, I need something unique. I need God to do something very unique in my life. Wherefore, the Word of God says that faithful is he that calleth you, who also will do it.
Okay.
Faithful is he that calleth you.
Okay.
You. He will do it. I don't have to worry about it. It works. I love what you said about where you got your mortgage is due, you have no gas in the car's breaking down. That's reality in life, which is here.
That's
So
our
how do I get out of
state.
it?
That's
Yeah.
come on, let's talk about
So
that.
how do I get out of that?
Yeah.
It's like he puts it on me. I think he knows what he's doing. He just keeps pouring it on until you finally just say, I give up.
Adjustment.
How many trials have we gone through in our life? And we look back and say, how did I get through that? How did that happen? It was God. He did it.
Yes. Rescue.
And so that is a working work of God that I have no control over. When Pastor Shala was saying, I lay on my back and I put my belly on. Will you rub my belly? Let me know that you love me. What's going on?
Acceptance. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Accepted in the beloved. Accepted in grace. The idea that because of sin, we understand that that's the point of our rejection. God cannot look upon sin, okay? And we have to be careful because we maybe want to come up with the Cain principle. The Cain principle, which means instead of offering to God, the animal sacrifice, which I don't have anything to do with, okay? Faithful is he who's called me, who now provides the lamb that needs to be presented, that totally makes me acceptable, because in my flesh I've been rejected. In my best ability to bring forth something that is meritorious and worthy, and somebody ought to pay attention to.
Filthy rags.
Yeah,
That's the thing that's not the cross.
yeah, but see, the natural man doesn't even know the cross, and he could be religious. He could be very religious. So he says, like, well, what's wrong with, you're saying I need to come to Christ and identify to the cross. I say I've got a fairly good life. That in my state, I'm applauded, I'm accepted, I'm doing pretty good.
So there will. That's the choice.
But you're saying that before God, that's filthy rags, non-acceptable. I'm bringing the wrong currency.
That's pride.
Then I want to, in my flesh, rebel against them.
Right.
Like Cain did, and kill you because that you repudiate everything that I'm believing in myself.
That's kingdom warfare, right? That's the warfare right there.
Kingdom warfare.
That's the kingdom warfare. You get God's people out sharing the gospel, sharing the message, sharing the cross, sharing the grace, sharing the only way, sharing the blood, sharing Christ. And then in evangelism, that's why there's friction in people's hearts. There's that friction. But
just keep going. Just keep going.
I think you were saying.
Oh, by the way, I'm wearing these sunglasses because I had cataract surgery.
No, he's
I'm not
he's
trying to be
cool.
cool.
He's a super.
Men in
Right,
black.
everything's so bright.
He is wearing black.
Men in
Okay,
black.
yes, he's wearing black.
How did it go? Pastor used to say this. Pastor said, I'm just thinking of, I love thinking of things that he used to say in a nutshell. It's the spirit and the word. You got to have the spirit and the word to grow. He said the word without the spirit causes me to dry up. The spirit without the word causes me to blow up. Emotionalism and all that stuff. But the word and the spirit causes me to grow up. And the decision, like Pastor, I think it was Pastor Bill saying, that it takes a willingness. It takes
To obey.
We can all think back to when you got saved. There was a decision that you said,
Okay, wait. That's good. No, willingness is I'm sitting here right now,
yeah.
and I'm free to sit here, or I could get up, go over here and sit, at another table. But I think that the thing that brings us to that willingness is more or less a surrender. But my state gets so broken that I have no other way to go but to stand in the grace of God.
Truly, yeah.
And say, Lord, you got to do this. It's not a 60-40 proposition like I had before. God, you take care of the impossible things, but I got this possible stuff under control.
That's why the right message has to be preached, because you can't mingle. It has to be finished word. Nothing else will mingle in. It has to be pure, just pure finished word.
Michelangelo did not defer to others to say, well, you do this part, and you do that part, and you do this part. No, he was in control of the whole process. And that's ultimately what we're talking about here. God is the ultimate. He's the master. He's the one fashioning us. He's the one
holding the tools.
That's it.
Yeah. It's interesting, the whole thing about the will, because Dr. Stevens, on the Grace Hour, not last week, but the week before, he said this, which shocked us all a little bit, shocked me. He's talking about weak-willed Christians. Weak-willed Christians.
Yeah.
And he was saying, he says, one of them is, Psalm 119, 133, order my steps in your word, let no iniquity have dominion over me. And let your word come unto me was another verse he mentioned. I think it's Isaiah 50, verse 4. But the point is, this idea of and it's just like Pastor Wright was saying, in that broken state, in the broken state that God brings us in these trials that we are in, how many times have we discovered that God is, or we don't even know what God is doing, maybe, but just like the prodigal son, and I know I used this as an example before, just like the prodigal son in the pig pen, he just says, ain't nobody helping me. God ain't even helping me. My dad's not helping me. I'm going to do something. I got to do something or I'm going to die here in this pig pen. And he gets up and he uses his volition to make a decision to go home. Even though it was partially contrived, it wasn't the exact, but why didn't the father come and rescue him? He didn't until the son made that choice. He made a decision.
Came to himself.
This is a true story. I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, here's the thing. I know I'm nobody, but here's the thing. When I went through a severe trial with losing my son and had cancer, I developed panic attacks, and they started coming, and I would get overwhelmed with an unbelievable sense of fear. They just would overtake me. I thought they would go away by themselves. They didn't. As a matter of fact, they increased and they got worse. And I started getting 3 or 4 panic attacks a day, and I didn't know what to do with them. And it was one of those situations again where I just was saying to God, hey, you got to help me with these panic. What's going on with the panic? I mean, the whole deal. And I'm getting no help from anybody. And all of a sudden, so I decided, and I don't know where the thought came from, but I just said, I'm going to make these panic attacks go away because I cannot have them. I can't deal with them. So I start learning how, and of course it's all God, believe me, I start learning how to use my volition to distract myself every time a panic attack came. Now, when the panic attack came, all of a sudden, I'm overtaken, but now, I'm looking at the TV set. The panic attack's still there. But little by little, as I focus on something else, panic attack, it goes away. So it took me 2 months of practicing what I just mentioned, till finally I was able to nip them in the bud right when they came. Right when the panic attack came, I knew it's coming. I distracted myself immediately, and that was okay. So that's my story. But the thing is, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. That's what I did. And to be honest with you, I didn't even think God was in that. I thought I was on my own, using my flesh to do something. And then God showed me, just like you did with those panic attacks, that's how you do your Christian life. You use your volition. Don't you be a weak-willed Christian. We don't go through life with willpower. We know that very well. But I'm talking about making a decision to be in the place where God is all in my life. Making a decision to not do it myself. That requires a decision also. Making a decision not to run through life with my will, that requires a decision also. Like the will is never thrown out the window. The cross doesn't take the will out. It crucifies the flesh, but it also what's resurrection life look like?
Then it conforms to His will, though.
Resurrection life looks like I still got a will, I still got a mind, I still got emotions, I still got a conscience. And I still got either self-consciousness or God consciousness. So all the new stuff, I choose to the best of my ability. I'm choosing for that every day of my life. But I'm not going to do it in a wishy-washy way. I'm doing it on purpose.
Wow, yes, deliberate.
Yeah, deliberate.
Psalm 1, Pastor Tom, outlines.
Anyhow, I'm done.
No, it's a beautiful part. Psalm 1 is an outline of what you just said. That agrees with Psalm 1. 2 men. Yeah. 2 men. 2 ways. 2 outcomes. Blessed is the man who meditates on my word day and night. This is what he'll be like. He'll be like a tree planted by the water. As opposed to not meditating on his life, he'll be like a scrub in the desert, no light and so forth. 2 men, 2 things, 2 destinies. So you made that will, you made that choice with your will. And that's what he was saying. I mean, that's how it happens. That's how it happens. It is God's power, but it's like He integrates. He lets you choose. I got to choose.
If choice in the song, if you read, I thought I need some examples from the Bible, other than the Proverbs. But if you read Psalm 119 over and over again, if it's Ezra, who I believe it was, he says, I will come unto you. I will exalt your word. I will. I mean, he's praying prayers also, but he, in the midst of those prayers, he says, I will. He's saying that David said it several times, I will come, whatever. I can't think of the verses right now, but anyhow, so what does a resurrected soul look like, right? Like you said, it's the guy in Psalm 1.
Someone says, I will.
Yeah, it's a guy, and Dr. Stevens said it in that message, and I've heard him say it before. The executive branch of my soul. What's the how is the correctly configured soul? What does it look like? It looks like the will is right at the top. The will, if you don't have the will, everything else is supporting that will, but the will is right at the top. And if I could quote Pastor, we have the mind of Christ. Paul said, I beseech you therefore by the emotions of Jesus Christ. We have Christ's mind, we have Christ's emotions. I have a consciousness that is void of offense before God and man. I have a consciousness of grace, or a conscience of grace. Grace has replaced the back and forth moral conscience that I inherited in Adam. Now I have a conscience that is grace, and I don't live in self-consciousness, but I live in God consciousness.
One of the things he overcame, he was a killer. He was a killer. So he was probably, maybe possibly haunted by those things he did. Paul, yeah. He was like haunted.
But he never mentions it, and that's incredible. So here's my state. He's out there, he's preaching. Came into the synagogue. He looks out and there's a woman and two little kids. And they're just there listening. And it comes to his mind, I was the one that jailed their father. I was the one that killed their dad. So could that interrupt his fellowship with God? I think so. But, and I love what you were saying about the prodigal son, because in all of his mess, coming to himself, some kind of way. So he did choose to go where? Back
to a far country.
home.
Well, first he chose to go to the far country.
Well, he chose that, yeah.
He didn't stop. He was exercising his will.
Yeah.
You gotta go. I'm not stopping. Yeah. So he exercised his will in a negative way.
But he didn't get to the end of the far country. He got the end to himself. In other words, like people can spend 25, 35, 50 years out here in the world and maybe not come to the end of themselves. They think it's the next thing, like the next trick, the next fascinating thing.
We can consider another killer by the name of David. Psalm 40, verse 8, he said, I delight, I take pleasure to do your will. Your law is within my heart.
There it is. There it is.
It's
In the heart.
an issue of the heart.
It is.
So it always comes back to the issue of the heart.
So then about David, the Lord said that David did my will. He was a man after my own heart. Never turned to the right or to the left.
That was
How did he do that?
That was God's verdict. Okay,
Yeah.
For us, we say his state was messed up.
Yeah.
He knew it. He was a sinner. See, David couldn't come to the average, church pulpit and preach that Sunday. Why? Because we know him after the flesh. Okay. Do I know myself after the flesh? Well, that's my state. But I really need to know that I am that I am. And the grace of God is not an excuse. Like, hey, I am what I am, so you got to accept that. No. It is that I take my volition and I accept God's verdict. And Lord, help me to live there.
And grace actually becomes the source of his labor.
That's right.
Jabez was another guy that You know, I mean, he's a good example because Jabez gets a bad rap. He gets a terrible name. He says, I ain't doing that. I'm not doing that name. Sorry.
Yep.
You know, he used his volition. I don't know how he figured that out, but he just said, I'm not going to be that person. And he says, God, can you get rid of evil in my life? Can you make evil go away in my life? And God granted him his request. You know, I mean, that's unbelievable. You know, I mean, I don't know to what degree, you know.
Because we have an equation. You know, sometimes we think, well, you know, like Jabez was not the most spiritually sharp knife in the drawer. But he was, you know, he had enough sense to know who to go to.
Yeah.
And I think that in a way, the flesh goes here, 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 until it runs out of here's. Then it's only what's left is like, I got to go to God, and He's got to do it because I've run out of options. I've exhausted I gave it my best shot.
He told Job this, in Job 22:28. You shall decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. You shall decree a thing, and it shall be established.
I can read that with my new eyeballs.
It's that verse concerning the works of my hands, command you me. God, you kidding me?
He's not.
Dr. Stevens used to say,
That's right.
I used to say, I don't believe that verse.
What was the verse
I used
again?
to tear that verse out of my Bible.
What was the verse
I don't
again?
even know where it's at, but it says, concerning the works of my hands, command ye me. And God said that to somebody in his Bible.
I like it when flesh dwells in a good thing. That always starts me off right in the morning.
We want to remind you of that right now.
We know.
We know.
No, amen.
Well, you know, the thing is I think every Christian person is trying to figure out how this Christian life works.
That's where we started.